What would happen if one day you simply chose to step away? Not vanish, not disappear physically, but to pull your presence inward, to detach from the invisible threads that tie you to others, not out of bitterness, not out of resentment, but from the quiet, overwhelming need to reclaim yourself. Most people never consider the weight of distance. They underestimate its power. But distance is not a void, it's a mirror. And what it reflects back is often more unsettling than what your presence ever revealed. When you remove yourself from someone's orbit, you don't just create absence, you expose dependency. We like to think people miss us because of who we are. But what if the pain of your absence isn't really about you at all? What if it's about the projections they could no longer place on you? The expectations, the fears, the insecurities you used to absorb just by being there. People don't see you as you are. They see you as they need you to be. You become their emotional placeholder, a reflection of their needs. And when you step back, they aren't mourning you. They're mourning what they can no longer avoid seeing in themselves. Think about how many times you've been told, "I need you," or "You're so important to me." And yet, those statements always seem to orbit around their world, not yours. Your absence then becomes a rupture, a disruption in their illusion. It evokes discomfort, sometimes even rage or guilt, but mostly a quiet question they dare not speak. Who am I without you here to reflect back my own image? That's what makes walking away so powerful. It forces others to face their emotional scaffolding and realize you were part of its foundation. The unsettling truth is that many relationships aren't built on mutual love, but on unspoken needs. We aren't just mirrors to others, we're often crutches. And when you take that support away, people wobble. They're forced to confront the reality that their emotional balance was never self-sustained. It was tethered to an idea of you, an idea that never fully aligned with who you actually were. And when that idea disappears, it leaves behind confusion, instability, and often blame. Because it's easier to call you selfish than admit to their own dependence. It's fascinating to watch how people rewrite your story the moment you step away. They reconstruct narratives to make sense of your absence. But those narratives rarely resemble who you truly are. Some idealize you. Your silence makes you seem saint-like, untouchable. Others vilify you, convinced your choice to leave was betrayal. But none of these stories are about you. They're about them. Their pain, their confusion, their need to rebuild a world where your decision makes sense, even if that world is built on misinterpretation. For some, your absence is an open wound. For others, it's a forgotten scar that suddenly starts to bleed again. And for a few, it's a mirror they never asked to look into. A mirror that reflects their greatest fear, being alone with themselves. The emotional response to someone stepping back isn't just about what's been lost. It's about what's been revealed. You may have just taken a breath of space, but for them, it feels like the earth shifted beneath their feet. Because in stepping away, you disrupted a dynamic they no longer controlled. What's most ironic is that many of these people never considered you essential until you left. In their minds, you didn't occupy that much space. But your departure proved otherwise. Suddenly, cracks appear where they didn't notice them before. Not because you broke anything, but because your presence had been holding everything together in ways they didn't see. Now they feel exposed, vulnerable, not because of who you are, but because of what your absence demands they confront. This is where we start to touch the core. Your decision to step away doesn't just disturb others, it reveals them. It reveals the foundation of the relationship, the emotional weight they placed on you, the control they thought they had. When someone no longer has access to your presence, they begin to spiral, not into grief, but into uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds anxiety. They start asking questions, not about you, but about themselves. Did I push too hard? Did I take too much? Did I ever truly see them? This is where the subtle unraveling begins. In your absence, people begin to reconstruct their identity, not just around who you were, but around who they were with you. Your presence, even if quiet or fleeting, had become entangled in their self-perception. And now they must recalibrate, relearn how to be without you. But here's the poetry and the pain. They don't remember you as you truly were. They remember you as they need to. One paints you in gold, another in shadows, and only the rarest ones allow themselves to remember with clarity and accountability. You become a myth in their mind, an ideal, a villain, a question mark. But all of these reconstructions serve one purpose: to help them manage the discomfort of not understanding. Because what we cannot control, we try to define. And your stepping away shattered a pattern they had grown comfortable with. Patterns, once broken, don't just cause discomfort, they cause chaos. It is that disruption, that shaking of the familiar, that triggers emotions they can't explain and reactions they didn't anticipate. And the irony in all of this? While they are navigating the confusion you left behind, you are not untouched. Stepping away is never clean, never easy. It is not escape. It is confrontation. Confrontation with yourself. It is standing in front of a mirror and whispering, "I need room to breathe, even if others won't understand." And that takes more courage than most people realize. It's a choice that often feels like abandonment, even when it's a desperate act of self-preservation. Maybe you've walked away from someone recently, or maybe someone walked away from you. Either way, if these words are resonating, it's because you felt the quiet collapse that follows. The silence that isn't really silent. The guilt that creeps in, uninvited. But here's the thing worth asking yourself. How much of your peace depends on being constantly available to others? And how much are you willing to release to reclaim that peace? Sometimes it's not a person you're letting go of. It's a version of yourself that was built for someone else's comfort. Let me offer you this. The void doesn't define you. It frees you. Write it down. Say it aloud. Leave it as a comment if this message has stirred something in you. Because emptiness is not always loss. Sometimes it is space. Space to rebuild. Space to breathe. Space to rediscover the version of yourself that isn't shaped by need, expectation, or guilt. The moment you realize that your value isn't tied to your availability is the moment you begin to walk with freedom. This isn't about glorifying distance or idolizing solitude. It's about learning that sometimes the most powerful form of connection is separation. That in leaving, we give others the opportunity to grow without leaning on us. And sometimes, that is the greatest act of love we can offer. Because presence is not always what heals. Occasionally, it is absence that teaches others how to heal themselves. So while they wrestle with the discomfort you've left behind, you too are transforming. You're reclaiming emotional space, learning to draw boundaries not out of anger, but out of necessity. That space becomes fertile ground for growth, not just yours, but theirs too. And what was once seen as abandonment may eventually be understood as a gift, the invitation to become whole without relying on someone else's light to see. And now, if you've made it this far, take a moment. Not for them, for you. Close your eyes. Breathe in the silence. You are not defined by how others remember you, need you, or interpret your absence. You are defined by the quiet courage it takes to step away from what doesn't nourish you, and by the wisdom to know when that silence speaks louder than any explanation. Subscribe if this message moved you. And remember, the world may not understand your absence, but that doesn't make it any less necessary.